is going on, all you wonderful A-plusters out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another review, and back with that really bad frame rate again. I am starting to believe it might be an issue with my computer. One more thing I'm going to try at some point is, I guess OBS does need to be updated, so maybe that was the reason that I have this really bad frame rate, and I didn't want to update it now because I kind of want to just get these recordings done, because I got to do this and then my Superman review, of course. But you know, the audio is totally fine, so I'm not too worried about it. I think honestly what it just comes down to is I'm pretty sure it's just that I need a new computer, which I will probably work on getting before the end of September, along with a few other changes. Basically just at the end of September, kind of expect a whole new aesthetic, pretty much, at the end of September, you know, so when I can save up enough to make a few changes in the background and all that. So now that I've delayed this review long enough, let's get into it. So this episode starts with the Enterprise arriving in a new nebula that basically is developing new stars, and they can use this nebula as a source for fuel for exploring vast new areas of the galaxy they never thought possible. However, Uhura then gets a message as soon as they get there, but she is unable to basically relay the message because it's suddenly gone, and there is no recording of it, and people start to think that maybe she might be hallucinating, mostly because she has a huge lack of sleep. You know, she's been so focused on work like the past year. She's really just been, you know, not getting the R&R that, you know, a Starfleet officer would need. So unfortunately, these hallucinations then start to turn into visions, and in these visions we do see a return of Hemmer, and we also see not just a return of Hemmer in her visions, but we also see a scene where she's trying to fix or trying to just, you know, check the systems to make sure there wasn't a glitch or a malfunction, which causes her to get a certain kind of radiation poisoning. I can't remember the name of it, but it's not like serious, but it is like a type of radiation that can cause you to see visions, which is what the doctor kind of assumes is going on with her. However, she started seeing the visions before she got affected by this radiation, so Uhura is very sure that that is not the case. That is not what's going on with her. There might be a lot more to it, and no one really believes her at first until she is at a bar, and she runs into none other than James T. Kirk, and I'll get a little more into this because there was a lot of Kirk in this episode too, and you know, it really feels like the showrunners do not want to show Kirk in like any bad light at all. It almost feels like they saw you know, some of the fan backlash that happened from The Last Jedi, how, you know, some fans, there was like a lot of controversy you know, around Luke Skywalker's character on whether or not he was written, you know, respectively to the character of Luke Skywalker, right? And it feels like the showrunners are doing everything they can to make sure that that does not happen with James T. Kirk. Like, he is essentially like, they write him to be just like almost a flawless character in this show. You know, it's like they really don't want any fans to, like, you know, send them negative letters being like, you disrespected Kirk. No, he's just written basically to be kind of perfect is what I'm getting at. But I'll get more into Kirk when I talk about him. And I'm also not saying that in a negative way. I don't think it's bad that they show Kirk this way, especially because he's not even a main character on the show. I feel like if he was like the main character, if he was the captain of the Enterprise at this point in the show, then it would be like not interesting. But I think because we only get him as like a guest appearance every now and then, to me it doesn't feel like bad character writing, to my opinion. But anyways, so she reveals that she's had these, man, I've taken so many notes on this episode that I actually kind of lost track of where I was. But here it is. Okay, so one of the things about these visions is that they give her visions of her dead dad, and I'm gonna, just to let you guys know, I'm gonna be going a little out of order in terms of events in this episode. If you've seen my Superman and Lois reviews, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. I'm kind of just gonna go with characters and then you know, talk about the story through the characters and what they go through. So yeah, basically kind of skipping ahead, she starts having visions of her you know, of her dead family who died in the shuttle accident, and she mentions to Kirk that one of her biggest flaws is the fact that she's never been able to face death. Like, she's basically kind of thrown herself into work, not because she's a workaholic, but more because it's just a lot easier than being alone with her thoughts and then having to think about the people in her life that she's lost. And this, of course, includes Hemmer and her parents, and I believe it was like more than just her parents. I think there was like siblings involved as well. But basically, she does whatever she can to not think about them and just completely take her mind off of them altogether. But it's what I really like about her character development and the way it moved the plot forward is that she did kind of have to embrace the visions, even the terrible like parts that she didn't want to look at, and through doing so, she's finally able to not only overcome her fear of losing people and her fear of death in general, but she's also able to use this to finally figure out what's been going on with her. And we find out that what's been going on is the signals in her head are essentially messages from an alien that is carbon based and isn't capable of communicating in a traditional way, can only communicate through visuals and not even through language or anything. So like the visuals are what they're trying to use to convey to Uhura that when they take fuel from this nebula, they're basically hurting this carbon-based life form. And I'll get to the resolution at the very end of this review because it's just, oh my gosh, I know I was praising Kirk a minute ago, but holy shit, Captain Pike, in terms of loyalty, wow, he is probably one of the best Starfleet captains out there. But I'll get to him at the very end of this review because now we get to talk about Kirk. So beginning of this episode was kind of weird. So we don't really get a lot of screen time with Sam Kirk at all. And the very few times we do, it feels like it's always just for a joke of some sort. So here we get a scene with him and his brother, James T. Kirk, and Sam just really comes off as petty and jealous, essentially mad that Kirk is doing better than him, and he thinks that Kirk's only doing it to show off when it's, I don't know. It was a weird kind of argument for the two of them to have, but he basically just, it feels like he's just trying to start a fight that doesn't need to be started, especially when Kirk is being like they're both Kirk, you know what I mean? Yeah, especially when James Kirk is being really nice to Sam during the whole conversation. So it was weird how they brought in Kirk in the beginning of the episode. But we do get an homage to the Kelvin timeline, which I thought was pretty hilarious, where Kirk actually meets Uhura in this, main timeline at the bar of the Enterprise. And very much like the Kelvin timeline, Uhura believes that Kirk is just there to hit on her. And I mean, in the case of the Kelvin timeline, he was, but in this particular case, now he's actually, what I like is that he's not really just trying to hit on her. He's actually trying to be a friend to her. He could tell that she's going through something and he's trying to, help her as a friend, basically. And when he sees that she's in distress and everything, I like how he basically does what he can to help her, in a way that no one else was doing at the time, because everyone else was saying that it was probably exhaustion or it was probably radiation poisoning. And then you have Kirk being like, well, I've had both of those things, and it's never there was a scene where she was hallucinating and she punched Jim in the face, and James is just like, yeah, I've never hallucinated so bad that I've punched a captain or a superior officer in the face before. So he realizes that there is something a lot worse going on with Uhura, and so he goes out of his way to investigate the other station that is in the nebula to see if any crew members have also been infected. And in fact, there actually was, which brings us to the Una and Pelia side plot, which I'll get back to in a moment. But basically he discovers that someone had a very similar thing to Uhura, but it, unlike Uhura, this actually drove him to be completely mad, which is something that Uhura is really worried about will happen to her. And what I really like is that, when she's able to conquer her fear of death, the big thing that helps push her to do so, was Kirk basically convincing her that she could. I thought that was a freaking amazing moment between Uhura and Kirk. The other thing I wrote in my notes, I didn't write anything beyond just La'an and Kirk, but this is it. The two of them meet up in this episode briefly, very, very briefly, and of course, Kirk doesn't remember anything from their adventure before, but La'an does, and you can tell it's a bit painful for her to see him the way that he is, and not, knowing anything about her. And there's almost like this idea that he could kind of see something is up with her, and I do like how he just kind of invites her to have a drink with him the next time they both have downtime, and it seems like it's a possibility that it could happen, but it also makes me worried of what I have a prediction, and I don't think it'll happen this season. I think it'll probably happen next season. I feel like at some point, because as far as I know, I don't think La'an is in the original series. Definitely, if anyone has seen all the episodes of the original series, let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below. But because I don't think she's in the original series, I'm wondering if she actually at some point in this show gives her life to save Kirk's. I'm wondering if that's where they're going with, because that's what it kind of feels like they're going for with this. But I do like the moment between the two of them. Very brief, but she does kind of, through just casual conversation, realize that even though it's a completely different timeline version of Kirk, it's still the same Kirk that she fell in love with in the events of that episode. So we get to like kind of the minor side plot, which is of course the I believe it's called the Farragut, which is the name of the gas station that was basically at the nebula, there to essentially fuel up ships, and it was again meant to be kind of the starting point for a whole new frontier of exploration into space. But basically Una and Pelia are assigned to help fix the station, get it ready. Pelia thinks that something isn't right and asks for permission to investigate, but of course Una denies. I say of course, but I actually think it was kind of weird that she denied her permission to investigate. But I kind of get it. I mean, I guess they had a job to do and they had to do it fast, so there's that. But regardless, she of course disobeys Una's orders and discovers that yes, there was sabotage going on. And that's when, of course, they discover Ramon, who has gone completely mad from the visions that the aliens gave him. Unfortunately, unlike Uhura, he wasn't able to figure out what the aliens were really trying to say until it was too late, so he kind of went mad before that. But I will say that, for the two of them, there's a lot of bickering, and it's mostly done for comedy, but there is a little bit of character growth, I guess, kind of towards the end, where, at first we think that Una is, like, pissed at Pelia because because she's just not listening to her orders, but then she brings up the fact that I guess Pelia gave her a C because Una was one of her students at one point. But then when it kind of comes down to is that Una is just really upset that Hannah is gone and doesn't like the idea of having him being replaced with someone else, and that's kind of what it really just kind of boils down to. I thought this was definitely the weakest part of the episode. Again, they were trying to imply character growth, but really just kind of felt like it was there for a mixture of padding and then just comic relief in general, which isn't bad. I definitely didn't hate this part of the episode at all. It was just my least favorite. The other thing I have to give an honorable mention to is that we do get a little bit more with Spock and Nurse Chapel. The two of them kind of discussing how they're gonna move forward with their relationship, but really it's just kind of there to let us as the audience know that yes, they are still a couple. We're just not focusing on it at this moment right now. So that was that. I did love, though, speaking of Spock, he was in the very last scene, and I absolutely loved it, where Spock and Kirk bond over how frustrating Sam can be, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And so we end with kind of the camera panning out and showing, Spock, Uhura, and Kirk all sitting at the same table together, kind of, setting the pieces for Star Trek, the original series. Thought that was a really, really cool way to end the episode. I am very curious, depending on how long Enterprise goes on, which I'm hoping Enterprise gets at least, wow, I said Enterprise, sorry, Strange New Worlds, wow. it's the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, but you know what I mean. So anyways, if Strange New Worlds goes on for at least 5 seasons, I would love to see by then them have like at least like all the members of the Enterprise like ready to, you know, kind of take over the ship. Not necessarily in their, you know, positions, but, you know, for example, it would be kind of cool to see McCoy, you know, become the next assistant basically for, you know, for the nurse, and then have Scotty come aboard to be the new engineer, that kind of stuff. It would be cool to see them all come aboard as ensigns, and then, you know, maybe end the show there, and then, or at the very least end the show with Kirk becoming the new captain of the Enterprise. You know, something like that. It'd be kind of a cool way to do it, but I don't know. Now we got the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is Pike, and he doesn't do much in this episode, all right, but holy crap, when he is on screen, he is amazing. Now, you know, beginning of the episode, middle of the episode, does, you know, his general captain thing of giving his, you know, usual speech as he likes to do in these episodes. But what really stood out to me about was the end of the episode. And that is when Uhura, you know, tells Pike about the situation, tells Pike that they need to destroy the gas station immediately, or else it's going to just cause even more harm to this, you know, carbon-based life form. And there's a bit of hesitation at first, which is extremely understandable, where he just has to double check to make sure Uhura is very sure of what she says. And, you know, she and Kirk are both like, yes, what we're saying is true. And he blows the station up, no hesitation. Like, wow, what an amazing captain to just kind of like take you at your word the way that he did right then and there. You know, so he takes out the gas station, and you know, all's good in the nebula again. And then on top of that, he says that if Starbase has any issues with this, they can take it up with him, pretty much. Basically saying that it was his call, he made the final decision. So, wow. I mean, oh my gosh, like, great, like Captain of the Year right there, because you know, again, that is a trusting captain, a very, very good trusting captain. And I like to think that it's because he's a very good judge of character, which, you know, we have definitely seen in the course of the show that he definitely is a good judge of character. So just that moment really, I thought, was kind of awesome, and just really made Pike just a very likable captain, you know, because of that. But overall, guys, definitely, I would say this wasn't my favorite episode of the season, but that wasn't a bad thing. It was still a really good, solid episode. And, you know, the season has really just been hit after hit after hit. Like, there hasn't been any bad episodes this season. You know, even in season 1, I don't remember being this engaged with season 1. Like, I enjoyed season 1, don't get me wrong. It was a great show, but like, I feel like I'm so much more engaged now with season 2. I think now that I've gotten to know these characters, and the writers seem to be having so much more fun with the adventures they go on. You know, we're more than halfway through the season, but it's just been amazing. But of course, you know, guys, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. But before I sign out, just want to let you guys know that episode 7, I'm going to be changing something up a little bit. I haven't decided if we're going to be doing this live yet, but I'm going to have someone join me for episode 7. It's going to be Will from Scene and Nerd podcast. He is also a really big Star Trek fan, so the two of us are going to be doing a crossover, because next week's episode is a crossover episode. We have Strange New Worlds crossing over with Lower Decks, which is, of course, the Rick and Morty style animated series. So I'm very excited to see what these two worlds look like when they collide. You know, it definitely looks like it's going to be a fun time. So it'll be fun to have a crossover review for a crossover episode next week. And again, I haven't decided if it's going to be live or not, but it should be a fun review regardless. So that all being said, I will see you guys later, and have an awesome night.